Okay, I'm going to try not to get long-winded here because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a movement in art that we're going to use as our springboard for our first project that we'll do from home. So, formalism is a word that I want to introduce you to. Formalism is a movement in early 20th century art that is defined by artists that try to remove all meaning from art. So we know a lot of times art will have some kind of a meaning. The artist is trying to send kind of some kind of a message, right? Well, they want to remove all of that and they want to make art just about what we see. And there is a lot to what we see on a canvas, for example, if we're just looking at a canvas, but this could apply to architecture and all kinds of forms of art. But if we're just looking at a canvas, you have a few tools that you can manipulate to make your art good or bad, interesting or boring. The one thing is your composition. So your composition, we'll see if you can remember this, okay? Your composition is the arrangement of objects on your picture plane. Your picture plane can be your canvas, your paper, whatever you're working on. It's the arrangement of the objects you choose to put on there. So here we have a big square, we have a little rectangle, we have a square up in the corner, we have two smaller squares that this artist chose to stack on top of each other and put down in this corner. And choosing to put these things in these places is creating an interesting composition. Now you may look at this and think, this is really boring, and I could do that, and kind of write it off as art that we should not take seriously. But if you'll just hear me out here and we can try to understand the artist's intentions. So he calls this composition with red, blue, and yellow, and the artist is Piet Mondrian, which is a very famous early 20th century formalist artist. And he also has color here to work with. So, as an artist, you have a few different tools. You have composition, you have color, you have shape, you have the elements and principles of design that include things like repetition, variety. We talk about these things all the time because you can use all of these things and still not really be sending a message necessarily. And that's what he's trying to do here. He wants to see if we can appreciate variety of sizes, if we can appreciate composition, if we can appreciate color in its simplest form without having any meaning attached to it. And this is kind of a key to understanding formalism, at least with Piet Mondrian, is he believed that most of art is sort of a lie, kind of telling us a message that can't ever be clear, or it can't ever be exactly the same for everybody, and so it can never really be true. And in his mind, if we just stick to the basic things like composition, color, form, line, and all the building blocks that make art, and we try to make something beautiful, that in itself is more true than anything else. So that's a really deep explanation. You don't have to understand all of that, but if you did, awesome. But he did have some really serious intentions there. So he's using a lot of squares here. That's not a formalist piece. That's a different style. This is a formalist piece, really great example where you see a lot of shapes. They're arranged on a picture plane. We see color. We see a certain kind of color. You see a lot of really highly saturated, bright colors. You don't see a lot of dull colors, so the artist made a choice about what color palette he or she was going to be using. He looks like the artist was here. Kandinsky, a very famous artist who's also playing with just the most formal things that we have to work with in art. You have shape, we have line, we have composition or the placement of those objects, we have color, we have a little bit of texture where we see things getting a little blendy, and versus things that are kind of colored in more flat. So, and putting all those things together, some places they go off the page, some places they stay kind of within the borders of the frame. So using all those things to try to make something that sets a certain mood. So that's what Kandinsky was trying to do, just with those basic elements. Okay, so that's an idea of what formalism. Now let's move on to what I want you to do at your house.